me, Kieron Gillen. I guess the 500-pound gorilla in the room right now is the Uncanny X-Men announcement.
Yes.
How you dealing with that? A couple weeks into it.
I'm dealing it with deep breathing, meditation, try not to panic. I mean, the thing is, as I said, I was telling my mum I was doing Uncanny with Matt. It's like, oh, the X-Men, I like that Wolverine. You know, the X-Men is a book, my mum knows who's it, and it's, you know, it's just this big, important... What I'm trying not to, whilst actually being respectful of the concept of lineage, I'm also still not being intimidating, because it's a book that's got to be alive. If it becomes just a history piece, it kind of like falls apart. So that's kind of what's going through my head. It's all right. The thing is, you know, I'm with Matt as well, so I've got, you know, a firm pair of hands to guide me into this this world of X. So yeah.
What's your initial, like, obviously this can be a very big answer, but your read of the X-Men universe? Why are the X-Men important characters?
Oh my god. That is a big answer. Do you want an essay? Basically, yeah. The X-Men, as most superhero comics are, a metaphor. You know, they're a metaphor for examining. The traditional way you've used the X-Men is a metaphor about difference and tolerance and prejudice, and talking about the idea of, like, coming to terms. And it's been used as a teenager metadome, and it's all, you know, used as a gay metadome. You know, lots of different sorts of metaphors. It's also about, which is actually kind of the way that Morrison more skewed it, that Children of the Atom sort of line, the idea that it's a book about the future, the idea that humans are like this and they're going to become something else. And that metaphor isn't necessarily about you know, genetic evolution. It's also about, you know, people will change, and it's about the idea of what people do to the idea of the quote-unquote future. And that's kind of where me and Matt's heads are, we think, because, I mean, Second Coming was this enormous... It feels like a monument, because, you know, it's a story fundamentally about all these anti-mutant groups getting together and trying to kill the mutants off once and for all. That kind of felt like an enormous monument, a cathedral to that story idea, which is one of those classic X-Men ideas. In which case, we don't really need to do it anymore, at least, you know, at least for a while. What else can you do with the concept of the new? How else is things degraded or sold out, or ruined, or abused, or manipulated? You know, that's the kind of where we're heading, and that's you know, the idea of how we deal with the future, and that's kind of what we are interested in using the X-Men for at the moment, amongst all the other stuff.
How is your work prior to, it's deep breathing, how is your work prior to taking over the X-Men, I guess, influenced your take, both your work on Thor and obviously Sword and even Phonogram and stuff before that?
It's a question of, you know, it's tools in the toolbox. I mean, the fact I've done, you know, so much more work now means that I'm much more aware of what tools I bring to bear. I mean, I think about 10 months into my Fall run, I kind of had a moment of realisation, as in, you know, oh my, I'm primarily a fantasy writer, as in, you know, and I kind of resisted that urge for a while. Well, no, I'm entirely happy in doing these kind of deliberately fantasy stories, and fantasy's a weird poison genre, but I kind of came to terms on that. So kind of one of the big psychological challenges to actually start writing the X-Men was the idea of actually reprocessing that. No, you're not, you can be something else instead. And that, when I approach a work, I don't want to say method acting, but I've got to believe it's right. You know, it's like if let's say, not if I've ever done it, if you're writing like a C-list character and they're doing a solo book, I've got to genuinely believe that character's the most important thing in the universe and deal with it like that, and that's important and interesting. So I've got to get myself in the headspace. So when writing Thor, I'm trying to train myself to think like that, and make everything I do as a prism to examine, you know, whatever that means. Whilst the X-Men, it's a different sort of prism, it's a different set of lenses that, you know, you want to focus. There's actually relatively little from Thor I'm taking, as in they are very, very, very different books. There's probably more from stuff like Phonogram even. You know, Phonogram is a social book, it's about people interacting with a certain age, especially in Generation Hope. There's a lot of, you know, in Generation Hope there's definitely a Phonogram influence in how I'm working a small cast and having them rubbing off each other. But you know, it's all tools in the box, and you use them like nail guns.
How did the Generation Hope offer come about?
It's worryingly easy. Basically Nick, despite Sword not really doing very well commercially, Nick Lowe, the editor, really, you know, liked it and thought, you know, was really pleased with the work I've been doing. And they were planning to do, you know, a book about these 5 lights. And this suggested, Kieron, you interested in, you know, doing this? I said yes, because I like working. But I also, you know, it was basically me and Matt got together and then made up the cast. So that's kind of, that was the big attraction that way, in that it was simultaneously, you know, trying to work with Matt, but actually making up new characters is kind of what I'm interested in as well. I mean, I quite like taking old ones out and making them do fun stuff, but actually building someone up from scratch and then just kind of letting it loose into the universe and trying to make them relevant and interesting, that strikes me as a fun challenge as a writer. I quite like making new things, and you know, making new things is generally, I mean, hell, if you actually look back across all my Marvel stuff, no matter what the gig is, there's generally something, there's one new character I put into it, just because, you know, because I'm somebody who doesn't have the 30 years of reading comics behind them. I'm somebody who's been reading comics like for the last decade, seriously. So I'm not, my immediate urge isn't to bring back X-Villain from 30 years ago. It might be just, oh, I'm going to make, it's like the Seer. I needed a villain, I made him up. And, you know, they're one of my favourite things about the run. I'm talking in circles. What was the question?
I think you actually answered it. Yes. One of the other big Kieron-related bits of news is the Marvel exclusive.
Yes.
How did it feel, basically? I mean, I like the way you contextualize it with a Beyonce reference. How do you feel getting a ring from such a big name?
It's just incredibly complimentary, you know. You do the work, and you do presume they don't hate you, because they keep on giving you more work, and they don't, and they don't like spit in your face or anything like that. But, you know, the fact that they would like to sign me up and actually have me doing work for a period of time, yeah, that's enormously complimentary, and strange as well, because I've been traditionally a freelance journalist, and I've kind of not really known what I'm doing for a month-to-month basis. Most of the comics works I've got have been like short-term. You know, there's either mini-series or set series, and Sword was the exception. Of course, Sword ended up being a mini-series. So, but the idea of actually having essentially my future plotted out for, like, you know, several years now, that's very strange and new to me, and not entirely unwelcome. And it takes the hustle and grind of actually just doing what I've done for like most of my adult life. It wears you down, and you know, sitting on my fat backside and just writing the fucking stuff, that appeals to me.
Wrapping up to be as blunt as possible, any hope for Phonogram 3 on Icon?
Not an Icon, no. You know, Icon is very much for like I don't want to say the top tier of creators, but yeah, you know, it's guys like Brian and Matt. And even if we just don't have time, we don't have the resources or anything like that, and both of us are just too busy. You know, that's the biggest thing. Even if like money fell from the sky and there was a movie deal and all that kind of stuff, we couldn't do it for like a year and a half, 2 years. Never say never, but really say never.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's funny that you mentioned movie deal. Who would play David Cole?
Oh, I hate that question. I'm really bad about ask James. Oh yeah, your casting couch was brilliant. Yeah, dude from Control.
From Control, playing David Cole, got it.
Frankie Boyle is the one we generally joke about in the UK. Frankie Boyle looks a bit like Cole, could probably pull it off, because he's a bit of a dipshit as well, which kind of fits into the idiom.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Kieron Gillen.
My pleasure.